In the race for progress, humanity has achieved incredible feats. But what happens when ambition outpaces safety? When innovation meets catastrophe? Prepare to witness the most shocking technological disasters in history. Did you know that a single O-ring brought down the mightiest spacecraft of its time? Or that a dam collapse in China killed more people than the atomic bomb? These aren't just accidents. They're wake-up calls that change the course of history. Because sometimes, the most important lessons are written in tragedy. So, prepare yourself to be shocked, amazed, and perhaps even a little terrified as we explore some of the most jaw-dropping technological disasters in history. These aren't just simple mistakes or minor glitches. These are catastrophic failures that changed the course of industries, shook nations, and, in some cases, cost countless lives. The space race tragedy. Our story begins in the midst of the Cold War, with the eyes of the world fixed on the space race. On January 28, 1986, millions of Americans, including schoolchildren across the nation, watched in horror as the Space Shuttle Challenger disintegrated just 73 seconds after liftoff. Among the 7 crew members was Krista McAuliffe, who was to be the first teacher in space. The cause? A tiny rubber O-ring that failed in the cold Florida morning, leading to a catastrophic chain of events. But the Challenger disaster wasn't just a technical failure. It was a stark reminder of the risks inherent in space exploration and a turning point in America's space program. The tragedy shook the nation's confidence and marked the beginning of a decline in public enthusiasm for manned space missions. Yet, it also led to crucial reforms in NASA's safety protocols, ultimately making space travel safer for future generations of astronauts. But if you think that's bad, hold on to your seats, because our next disaster takes us from the heights of space to the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. The unsinkable dream. Now let's travel back in time to 1912. The RMS Titanic, a marvel of early 20th century engineering, set sail on her maiden voyage. Dubbed unsinkable by her creators, the Titanic was the epitome of luxury and technological achievement. But as we all know, hubris often precedes a fall. On a frigid April night, the unthinkable happened. The ship struck an iceberg, and in less than 3 hours, the pride of the White Star Line slipped beneath the icy waters of the North Atlantic. The tragedy claimed over 1,500 lives, but perhaps the most shocking aspect was the revelation that the ship carried lifeboats for only about a third of those on board. The Titanic disaster not only exposed fatal flaws in ship design, but also led to a complete overhaul of maritime safety regulations. When nature meets poor engineering. Fast forward to 2005. Hurricane Katrina, one of the deadliest hurricanes in U.S. history, was bearing down on New Orleans. As the storm surge overwhelmed the city's levee system, a disaster of unimaginable proportions unfolded. Over 2,800 people lost their lives, not primarily due to the hurricane itself, but because of the catastrophic failure of the city's flood protection system. The levees, designed to withstand such storms, crumbled under Katrina's onslaught. This wasn't just a natural disaster. It was a man-made catastrophe born from inadequate engineering and years of neglect. The aftermath of Katrina exposed deep-rooted issues of inequality and infrastructure decay in one of America's most iconic cities, forcing a national reckoning on disaster preparedness and urban planning. As we sail away from the Titanic's watery grave, our next stop brings us face to face with Mother Nature's fury and mankind's inadequate preparation. The dam that broke a nation. Now, let's shift our focus to China in 1975. As Typhoon Nina unleashed its fury, the Banqiao Dam on the Ru River faced its ultimate test. Despite warnings from critics about its design flaws, the dam stood as a symbol of China's rapid industrialization. But on that fateful August night, nature proved more powerful than human engineering. The dam's collapse unleashed a wall of water that swept away entire villages, claiming an estimated 171,000 lives, 26,000 from the initial flooding, and 145,000 from the ensuing famine and epidemics. The scale of the disaster was so immense that it remained a state secret for years. The Banqiao Dam failure stands as a stark reminder of the potentially catastrophic consequences of prioritizing rapid development over thorough engineering and safety considerations. The Invisible Killer. In 1986, the world witnessed another technological disaster that would have far-reaching consequences for decades to come: the Chernobyl nuclear accident. In the early hours of April 26th, a safety test at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine went horribly wrong, resulting in a massive explosion that released radioactive material across much of Europe. The immediate death toll was relatively low, with fewer than 60 deaths directly attributed to the accident. However, the long-term effects have been a subject of intense debate and study. While some claim that hundreds of thousands have died due to radiation exposure, the scientific consensus suggests a more nuanced picture. Regardless of the exact numbers, the Chernobyl disaster fundamentally changed the world's perception of nuclear energy and led to sweeping reforms in nuclear safety protocols globally. The night Bhopal couldn't breathe. In the heart of India, another industrial catastrophe was waiting to unfold. On the night of December 2, 1984, the Union Carbide pesticide plant in Bhopal released a deadly cloud of methyl isocyanate gas. As the toxic fumes spread through the sleeping city, thousands of people were killed in their sleep or as they tried to flee. The Bhopal gas tragedy is considered one of the world's worst industrial disasters, with death estimates ranging from 4,000 to 30,000. But the horror didn't end there. Survivors and their descendants continue to suffer from severe health issues to this day. The disaster exposed the dangers of lax safety standards in industrial facilities and the devastating consequences when corporations prioritize profit over people's lives. The explosion that shook a nation's conscience. Let's travel back to World War II America. On July 17, 1944, a massive explosion rocked the Port Chicago Naval Magazine in California. The blast killed 320 sailors and civilians, most of them African American. But this wasn't just a tragic accident. It was a powder keg of racial tension waiting to explode. The aftermath of the disaster led to a mutiny when surviving African American sailors, fed up with dangerous and discriminatory working conditions, refused to return to work. The Port Chicago disaster and the subsequent mutiny became a pivotal moment in the fight for civil rights in the U.S. military, exposing the deadly consequences of racial discrimination and inadequate training in handling munitions. When the heavens opened. In 1979, the small Indian town of Morvi became the site of an unimaginable tragedy. On August 11th, after days of torrential rain, the Makchu 2 dam collapsed, releasing a wall of water that swept away everything in its path. In a matter of hours, an estimated 5,000 to 15,000 people lost their lives. The Morvi Dam failure is a chilling reminder of the catastrophic consequences of poor engineering and inadequate disaster preparedness. Like many such disasters, it raised questions about the responsibility of engineers and policymakers in ensuring the safety of large-scale infrastructure projects, especially in areas prone to extreme weather events. The day Texas City burned. On April 16, 1947, the port of Texas City, Texas, became the site of one of the deadliest industrial accidents in U.S. history. It began with a fire on a ship loaded with ammonium nitrate, a compound used in both fertilizers and explosives. What followed was a chain reaction of explosions that devastated the entire port area. Over 500 people lost their lives, and thousands more were injured. The Texas City disaster exposed the dangers of transporting and storing hazardous materials in populated areas. It led to significant changes in chemical safety regulations and emergency response protocols, but also raised questions about the true cost of industrial progress. The silent killer in the coal mines. To the depths of China's coal mines. On April 26, 1942, over 1,500 miners, both Chinese and Japanese, lost their lives in one of the deadliest mining disasters in history. The tragedy was a grim testament to the dangerous working conditions and inadequate safety measures that were all too common in the mining industry at the time. What makes this disaster particularly haunting is the callousness with which it was handled. In an attempt to contain the disaster, many miners were reportedly left to die, trapped in the mine. The incident serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of industrialization and the importance of workers' rights and safety regulations. Each of these disasters, while unique in its circumstances, shares a common thread: the consequences of human error, technological overreach, and sometimes sheer hubris. They serve as powerful reminders of our responsibility to prioritize safety, thorough engineering, and ethical considerations in our pursuit of technological advancement. After all, the price of progress should never be measured in human lives.